So, jumping as a responder. Now, what I'm going to talk about tonight is, naturally, as a responder when you jump bid, but I'm going to talk mainly about natural bids rather than some kind of artificial thing. Obviously, as a responder, you can jump into some kind of artificial bid, like a Splinter or Jacoby or anything else you might agree. There are other systems that are artificial. I'm going to talk mainly, well, only really, about natural bids. Now, firstly, as more of a recap more than anything, jumping in the same suit as your partner's open bid means something. Jumping in a new suit means something entirely different. So when you're supporting your partner, there are different constraints on your bidding. When you're bidding your own suit, obviously that means something different because you haven't necessarily got a fit. So you need different styles of hands. So to support your partner, obviously 2 hearts here isn't a jump. But if we were to go back to, not olden days, but classic kind of ACOL bidding, that is the point count you need to jump, assuming you're bidding the same suit as your partner. It is perfectly fine to jump bid when you're supporting your partner, because when you're raising your partner, you are making a non-forcing bid. Whenever you bid the same suit as your side, if you bid the suit that has already been bid, it is non-forcing. So if you jump or double jump in the same suit, it is still non-forcing. 2 hearts, 3 hearts and 4 hearts can all be passed by your partner because they are all natural and non-forcing. It's very important as a responder you understand what is forcing and what isn't, because when you want to force, if your partner passes, that would be bad. And similarly, if you want your partner to pass and you force, that's also bad. So you need to be on the same kind of page as one another. Now, bidding the same suit is never forcing. So sometimes, if you've got too many points to raise your partner 1 level, you have to jump. Sometimes, if you've got too many points still, you have to jump again, i.e. jump 1 more. Now, you can use conventions to show a game-forcing hand, like Jacoby and Splinters, but that's a lesson in itself. But you can jump in your partner's suit. Now, obviously, this kind of point count is assuming your hand is balanced, because if you are unbalanced, instead of all that, you can use the losing trick count, or LTC, because I can't bother to write losing trick count. So if you have an unbalanced hand, you could be making a jump response based on your losers in your hand. Similarly, if you have a singleton, you could be making a jump response based on the Splinter in your hand. So jump supporting your partner is a fairly common thing to be doing. It means you've got a fit for them, but you don't have too few points, i.e. you've got too many points to bid 2 hearts or 2 spades or whatever suit it is they've opened. Notice here, I've made it easy for, not easy for us, more likely we're going to be supporting our partner because they've opened a major. If they were to open one of a minor, it's less likely you'll be supporting your partner, not because it's less likely you find an 8-card fit there, but because it's less likely you want to do that. Normally, you would show a major suit in preference to supporting. So here, these point counts are still the same. Bidding 4 diamonds is slightly unusual, given that you want to normally be in 3 no trumps. But these point counts are still relatively the same, but now you may well be choosing to bid 1 heart or 1 spade in preference to doing this. It's okay to support your partner's minor, but you need to not have a major as well. So it's less likely for you to want to do that thing. Now, jump supporting your partner is fine. It's natural, non-forcing. There's nothing really fancy about it. Now, jumping in a new suit, hopefully that was mainly revisionary, jumping in a new suit is something that doesn't really happen very often, unless you're double jumping and making it some kind of Splinter thing. If you were to play it as natural, let's say jumping to 2 hearts, what exactly does that mean? Well, if you just think about it from a different perspective, what would 1 heart mean? So 1 heart here would mean 6 plus points and 4 plus hearts. And that's it. So South's bid of 2 hearts doesn't really need to exist, because if 1 heart is 4 or more hearts and 6 or more points, doesn't that cover every hand with 4 or more hearts? Basically, yes, is the answer. So because a new suit is forcing, you don't need to jump with a good hand. Because if you jump, you're actually consuming the room between the 2 of you. So this bid, bidding a new suit, jumping in a new suit, doesn't really make any sense, because if you have, let's say, 6 hearts and 18 points, you can still bid 1 heart, because your partner will bid again, because a new suit is forcing. So if you like, 1 heart is 6 to unlimited number of points. So you don't need to jump unless you have more than unlimited number of points, i.e. it can't exist. So here, this bid doesn't really make sense, because why haven't you just bid one heart? If one heart is forcing, how forcing do you want to be? This is 100% categorically forcing if it were one heart, so how forcing is two hearts? It's just daft. Now if we were playing, if we were playing a traditional standard ACOL, what this was played as back in the day, similar to an opening two hearts, is a strong jump shift. Now a jump shift refers to you jumping as a responder and shifting which suit you're jumping into. So a jump response is I support your whatevers. A jump shift is I'm jumping in this side suit. Now what ACOL, traditional ACOL would say is a jump shift is a strong jump shift, which is 16 plus points and a 6 plus card suit. Now don't get that going to your head because that's nonsense. I'm just telling you what ACOL would have told you. Now the reason I think this bid is so wasteful is because how often do you have a 6 plus card suit and 16 plus points and your partner has opened the bidding? Never. So this is a real waste of a bid in my opinion, and this is where traditional ACOL really lets us down, because they use a lot of jump bids to show strong hands that you never get. Just like strong twos, they hardly ever happen, yet weak twos happen all the time. So we play weak twos because opening two something is more likely to benefit us. So you probably see where I'm going with this jump bid. So when we jump as a responder, rather than it being a strong jump shift, the modern style is to play weak jump shifts, which is completely the opposite, of course. The idea behind that is, based on frequency, it's more likely you have a weak hand as responder, and you want to get your hand over in one bid. If you have a strong hand as responder, you can just bid one, and then your partner will bid again, and then you describe the strength and nature of your hand on your next bid. Again, tying in with all of our bidding theory, the slower you go, the better your hand is. The faster you go, the weaker your hand is. Now, there are slight exceptions to that rule here and there, but generally speaking, if you've got a good hand, you want to embark upon a conversation. If you have a poor hand, you want to get it done with, which sometimes means pass. That's all this kind of general theme running through the bidding. So strong jump shifts are no good, because that says we've taken up all of the two, almost all of the two level, and there could well, / nearly always, a slam be on here. And we've just consumed a whole level of bidding, when one heart would have been forcing anyway. Okay? So jumping in a new suit actually represents, if you have agreed it of course, a weak jump shift. So let's, I don't know why I wrote that out, so I'm going to put 2 hands anyway. It's actually more useful to have 5 to 8, I suppose. 5 to 8 points and a 6 card suit. I think I got told yesterday that needs alerting, apparently, because it's unusual, even though everyone in the world plays them before. So, playing weak jump shifts, what this does is it facilitates the responder to be able to show a weak 2 style hand in one bid. They can show a hand that would have opened a weak 2-ish. As kind of a one bid principle. The reason you are doing this with a weak hand is because it is less likely you need the room between the two of you to have a conversation. So the better your hand, the more you want to bid one heart. The worse your hand, the more you want to kind of preempt. It's not unlikely that the opponents can compete against you now. Let's say you've got 6 points and 6 hearts. Your partner's got 13, 14. They may well have a fit somewhere as well and want to compete. So the faster you get there, the better. So weak jump shifts is completely kind of turned on its head what the jump response was about, because jumping as a responder, being a strong bid, is wasteful. So what this says really is, I would have opened a weak 2 in hearts. That's essentially what it says. Using that as an overcaller and a responder and an opener means that all the bids are now in line. If you jump to 2 hearts, whether that's an overcaller, an opener, or a responder, it is all the same thing. That makes your life very easy for memory purposes. So using this bid as a weak hand, that doesn't mean North will never ever bid again, but it means that they're in a good position to judge how good their hand is opposite your weak 2 in hearts. Now you might say, why 5 to 8 points? Why not 5 to 10 like a normal weak 2? Well, the reason it's limited to 5 to 8 is because when you start to get 9 or more, it starts to become a potential of game. I mean, there is still a potential of game with 5 to 8, but your partner needs a very good hand. But 9 or more is considered invitational, and then 12 or more is naturally considered game forcing. So because your partner has opened the bidding, you kind of shorten the weakness of the week 2 a bit, because 9 or more, there is a possibility of game on. Okay? So jumping in a new suit is not a strong action, it's in fact a weak action, assuming you've agreed it, of course. And that's because you don't need it to be strong, because 1 heart is the way to get strong hands across. Okay, so far? Yes?
Do you need to have any points in hearts?
Good question. Strictly speaking, no, because if you have the hand that suits, you have the hand that suits. You can be less stringent about your suit quality because you're not on your own here. It will be nice if some of your points were in your suit, naturally, but you don't have to. So I suppose there is a bit of a caveat. I would have opened this hand a week 2, asterisk, my suit might be a bit dodgy, I suppose. If you've got, let's say, 6 hearts and 6 points, given that you're playing weak jump shifts, you have to jump, because if you bid 1 heart then 2 hearts, that's stronger now, because jumping is the way you show a weak hand. So ideally, yes, but not promising. Now, because weak hands with 6-card suits go through a jump, that means now you can be more clever with your 1-level responses, and then by repeating your suit, you're showing something else. Okay? So if I change what South's response was, and instead start them off with 1 heart, so if it goes South 1 heart, North does something, let's say 1 spade. Now, if South bids 2 hearts, that means they've got 6 or more hearts, because they've rebid their suit, so they've got a 6-card suit. But they can't be weak, because if they were weak, they would have jumped to 2 hearts over 1 diamond. Now, if we were playing traditional Akol would have this as a weak rebid, because they've got the jump response as 16 plus. But my argument is the jump response doesn't come up very often, so we should use the jump response more often as a weak bid, and then use our stronger bids through 1 heart.
Dominic, does
Yes.
the original 1 heart response mean you've got 5 hearts?
4 or more
4 or more?
at that stage, yes.
But the 2 hearts definitely means.
Promises 6, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Because for a responder to be not arguing, but slightly ignoring what their partner's doing, they need a good reason to be doing that. So here, 1 heart then 2 hearts, because it can't be weak, it now means it must be stronger than that. I suppose you could argue, well, couldn't it be 0 to 4? I suppose so, if you want to play that, but 0 to 4 you tend to pass. So it's 6 plus hearts, and I would say it is in the invitational bracket. The next lot up. So 5 to 8 is considered weak. Not necessarily not game going, because your partner could have a really good hand, but not particularly interesting game. The next bracket up is 9 to 11, because game could well be on in that bracket. And 12 plus is considered game forcing. Okay, you all with me? So the better your hand is, the more you want to go through 1, which is counterintuitive to how you instinctively think, which is why the Akollers did the intuitive way, but actually this is a better way, a better system. So in this instance, because you've gone 1 heart, 2 hearts, your partner knows you are invitational rather than weak, because you are playing weak jump shifts, so they know you're in this point bracket rather than the 5 to 8 point bracket, because you didn't bid 2 hearts immediately. Follow me? Now, there is 2 really, really good things about this. The first thing is that it frees up 3 hearts to create a forcing situation, which I'll get to in a minute. And the second thing is that you can potentially finish a whole level lower than the Akollers in the counterparts. So if we were playing traditional Akol, i.e. 2 hearts immediately over 1 diamond was strong, then 1 heart, 2 hearts would be weak, which means 1 heart, 3 hearts is invitational. So it moves all the bids around. Now, that problem with that is, if that was our system, it could be that there is no heart fit and no game, and you're at the 3 level. That could be the case. So the good thing about weak jump shifts is it gets you out a lot lower down. Well, not a lot lower down, it gets you out a level lower quite frequently. Because now if your partner is uninterested with your 1 heart, 2 heart bidding, because they've got a singleton heart and 13 points, they can just pass. Just like if you'd kind of responded a week 2 style. So having your bids a whole level lower is something that really wins. Because your jump is weak, it means everything can slot down 1. So 1 then 2 is invitational, and 1 then 3 is game forcing. Rather than 1 then 3 is invitational, 1 then 4 is game forcing. You can smooth everything down 1 because you've got a weak bid available. So slightly preempting myself and my next point. 1 heart, 3 hearts is 6 plus cards again, because you're repeating your suit, and 12 plus points. Because you can't be in any of the other brackets. If you were 5 to 8, you'd have jumped to 2 hearts immediately. If you were 9 to 11, you'd have gone 1 then 2. So you must be stronger than that. So 1 then 3 is game forcing. This is all based on the assumption that you are playing weak jump shifts. Now if you say to opponents we're playing weak jump shifts, it sounds really fancy, but it really isn't. It's just playing weak twos, but as a responder as well. That's essentially all you're doing. But it feels fancy, just because not many people, well, I suppose a few people play it nowadays. Now the beauty here, well, I'll show you a hand in a minute, but the beauty here is you've managed to gain force at the 3 level, so your partner now is well informed as to what decision to make, whether they should go for 4 hearts, whether they should bid 3 no trumps, whether they should look for a heart slam, whether they should control bid, 4 no trumps, whatever. They are in a very good position to know what to do, knowing you have a game going hand with 6 cards in hearts, or whatever suit you're jumping in. Yes?
Your game forcing with potentially only 24 points.
Yes.
Is that
It's okay because you've got a 6 card suit, so that normally backs you up. As to
they might not have any.
They might not have any, and they might have to bid 3N, and it might not be a very nice 3N. But more often than not, you'll find your 6 card suit is worth it. Okay. Yeah, whatever happens, happens.
Come on, mate, you get ahead there anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if you weren't to game force and you did invitational, you would be undervaluing your hand, I think, with a 12 count. It's possible you got exactly 12 opposite exactly 11, and they've got a void, and they have to be 3N. That's quite pessimistic. You could nudge that up to 13 plus if you want to be safe. That's not what I do though. Now, if I just kind of focus on this 1 heart, 3 heart bidding, or 1 spade, 3 spades, or whatever suit you want to jump in, I'll get to the minors in a minute because they're a bit awkward. If I give us a hand, you will see the awkwardness of not playing weak jump shifts. So I'm trying to give you the problem and then sell you the solution. That's what a good salesperson will do. So, if our partner opens 1 diamond again, I'll put some kind of hand up. Okay. So, partner opens a diamond. We've got a 13 count with 6 good hearts, so we want to respond. Let's imagine just for a second that we're playing classic Akol. So jumping to 2 hearts will be 16 plus and a 6 card suit. So our hand isn't good enough to do that. So we have to bid 1 heart. Okay, nothing wrong there. That doesn't seem particularly weird at this stage. Now our partner bids 2 clubs, let's say. The problem you have here is that if you bid more hearts, that is all non-forcing. If you bid 2 hearts, or 3 hearts, or 4 hearts, they are all non-forcing. That's because it is not a new suit. If you bid 2 hearts, that is playing traditional Akol, that would be weak with 6 hearts. 3 hearts will be invitational with 6 hearts, and 4 hearts will be, I've got so many hearts, I want you to go away. Now, none of those are strictly true. We don't have enough hearts to know that we need partners to go away. Nor do we have a weak enough hand to not think game is on. We want to go for game, don't we? But we don't know whether that game is in 4 hearts or 3 no trumps, or potentially one of the minors if our partner's got an exceptionally shapely hand. We don't know. So if we don't play weak jump shifts here, we can't game force. The only way to game force is to bid 4 suit forcing, 2 spades. Our partner does something, let's say 2 no trumps, and then repeat your hearts. That is how you get round this problem currently. You bid 4 suit forcing, getting them to bid again, and then you would bid your hearts again. And that is a way of forcingly bidding hearts. The problem you might have is over 4 suit forcing, they might have bid if the suits work out differently. How can I make it work out differently? Okay, let's make it awkward. 1 spade, 2 hearts, 3 clubs, 3 diamonds, 4 suit forcing, 3 no trumps. So we've got too good a hand to just bid 4 hearts because we don't know that we've got a heart fit. We've got too good a hand to bid 2 hearts, 3 hearts. So we bid 2 hearts originally. Our partner bids 3 clubs, showing spades and clubs. Oh, we've got a spade fit. Damn it. There we go. We bid 4 suit forcing because we need to tell our partner we've got 6 hearts and a good hand. They bid 3 no trumps. Do you pass or do you bid 4 hearts?
Pass.
Pass and hope they haven't got 2 hearts. But that would be bad if they've got 2 hearts, wouldn't it? And then they go, why didn't you bid 4 hearts? I've got Queen Doubleton heart. And you go, well, I didn't know that. And then you bid 4 hearts, and they go, what on earth are you doing? I've got a void. So there is no satisfactory solution here, because you've wasted your jump bid. Because your jump bid is a strong bid which never comes up, you haven't got enough bids to describe your hand, which is what weak jump shifts are all about. So having to use 4th suit forcing sometimes doesn't work out, is what I'm trying to say. So playing a repeat of the suit as invitational and a jump repeat of the suit as forcing is actually a way of getting round this problem of having a good hand as responder with a 6-card suit. Okay? Right, so if we just look at being the person who has just had their partner respond, you can treat it, if they've done a weak jump shift, you can treat it as if they've opened a weak 2 kind of thing. So if it does go 1 diamond, let's say 2 spades, because we haven't done much of a different suit yet, you know that they've essentially got a weak 2. So if your hand is poor, but with a spade fit, you can do level of the fit, poor for an opening bid. If your hand is good, you can inquire with 2 no trumps, just like after a week 2, and you can do show a feature, if you were listening a few weeks ago. If your hand is really good, you can just bid game, if you think 4 spades is a good idea. All of these things are just like after a week 2, and that's because our partner has represented a week 2, so nothing changes. So if you like, this is assimilating all of your system along the same veins. The jump bid as an overcall and an opener and a responder are all along the same lines. Follow me? So if you think spades is a good contract, you can raise spades or inquire about spades or bid game in spades. If you think spades is a poor contract, pass. Which sounds counterintuitive, but if you had partner opening a week 2 and you had a singleton spade and 12 points, you would pass. Because you don't think you're going anywhere. So it's the same vein. So if I put a couple of hands up here, where we would open a diamond, let's first give the bad news. So we open a diamond, that seems pretty normal. Partner jumps to 2 spades, promising 6 spades in a weak hand. Our hand has collapsed. Our hand is worth next to nothing now, because our partner has the wrong cards for us. They've got 6 spades, which is not what we like. Points most likely in spades, but not promised. So our hands are not gelling very nicely at all. Another way of thinking about it is, if partner opened a week 2 in spades, how would I bid? And the answer is you wouldn't, because your hand is rubbish. You could say, well, aren't they in a mess? Don't I need to save them? I should try 2 no trumps. I can see where you're coming from logic-wise, but because partner's got a weak hand with 6 spades, they will not be able to help you in no trumps. Their hand will not be a lot of tricks in no trumps. In fact, you will find you're stranded from one another most of the time. So really, the only contract you really can play in is your partner's long suit. Their hand is rubbish, so they need their suit as trumps. So again, if partner opened a week 2, what would you bid? And follow that pattern. We would pass, so pass. If, however, I turn the spades and clubs around, so we've got support for our partner. That never happens. Now you can see that your hand has improved in value. Your singleton club is looking good. You've got a nice spade fit for your partner. There could well be chances of game on here, potentially. Well, not necessarily game, but you like the fact that partner has got spades now. Your hand has improved in value rather than disintegrated, as it did before. So now you can think, well, what would I bid if partner opened 2 spades as a weak 2? The answer would be 3 spades as level of the fit. So the same principle applies here. What you're trying to do is stop the baddies from pinching the contract. Okay? So I'm not going to teach you anything more about this because it is literally identical to how you would respond to a weak 2. Just be slightly aware that their range is 5 to 8, not 5 to 10. So game is slightly less likely. Slightly. But you do have an opening hand, so you are more likely to be slightly buoyed by the fact they've got something. Okay? Now, minors. Minors are a bit awkward. And that's because you tend to find yourself at the 3 level by the time you've bid a minor. So if I turn those suits around, 1 spade, 3 diamonds, the problem here is you've got less room. Because you've opened one of the suit, and this minor is not as strong as your suit, so a jump bid has to go to the 3 level quite often, if not always. I mean, there is a situation where it doesn't, but if not always, you have to jump to the 3 level. So there is a lot less room to investigate things now. Not only that, your partner has bid a suit that you are less likely to want as trumps, because they're diamonds. You don't want diamonds as trumps as much as you want hearts or spades as trumps. Now, one thing about the weak jump shift is that hand should not really have any interest in your major. So it's unlikely, unless you've got lots and lots of spades, 6+ I would say, it's unlikely that spades should be trumps. What they're trying to say really is my hand suits diamonds as trumps and that's about it. That's what they're trying to say. So you can respond the same way. The problem is you've got less room because now you can't bid 2 no trumps enquiry, raise level of the fit as easily because your partner has pushed you one level higher. So the simple kind of answer really is it's awkward with minors. There isn't a quick fix. I can't tell you any kind of scientific clever way to get around this. They've taken up more room. The benefit is that they've taken up more room from the opponents, which could be a good thing. They might have wanted to have called 2 hearts, for example. So with minors, you just kind of, if your hand happened to be good, you have to make a decision. Do I want to go for 3 no trumps or do I want to leave partner in the minor? That's pretty much all you can do. You can bid your suits, but be aware they aren't promising any tolerance at all for your suits. If you were 5-4, it's probably more likely the correct thing to do is just let them play in their 6-card suit rather than showing you a 5-4. When they weak jump shift, they nearly always want to play in that suit, is what I'm trying to say. So unless you've got a good reason not to think that's correct, trust them. Minors is a bit awkward because you've got less room to inquire. You've just got to kind of make a decision. This is the disadvantage to playing weak jump shifts because they've got in your way. But you tend to find they've also got in their way, so it's not necessarily a bad thing. It just can make your bid a bit awkward.
Is that still 12 points?
This bid is 12 points.
Sorry.
This bid will be 5 to 8
Oh.
because it's a weak jump shift.
Yes, all right, yeah.
Now, it looks like you need more points, but because it's a minor, it's just forced you up one level higher. So therefore, if they go 2 diamonds, then 3 diamonds, assuming we do something, that's now invitational. So 9, 10, 11. Similar to 1 heart, 2 hearts being 9, 10, 11, this is 2 diamonds, 3 diamonds, 9, 10, 11. The reason that ties in beautifully is because they needed 9+ points to bid at the 2 level, 10+ arguably, but with a 6-card suit, fair enough. And so now, having rebid the diamonds, they've shown you 6 cards in diamonds without forcing the bidding because they bid the same suit. So it all ties in, all the numbers, you just have to believe me, but all the numbers tie in. Okay? And if they wanted to force the bidding, they could have done what?
Go
4.
4 diamonds would force with diamonds, how else could they force? 4th suit forcing would also force. So they've got 2 options. 3 clubs will be 4th suit, that typically will be looking for no trumpy things. 4 diamonds will be forcing with diamonds, saying diamonds are trumps, how high? Essentially. Okay? So as a responder, the reason this works a lot better is because it means you are jumping more frequently, you're making use of the jump bid. Because right now, playing ACOL, I bet you can't tell me the last time you had a 6+ card suit and 16 points when partner opened the bidding. You probably can't tell me the last time you had a 6+ card suit, 16+ points, never mind the time partner opened the bidding as well. I mean, it just doesn't happen frequently enough for it to be worth it. So playing weak jump shifts, you've taken away one of the bids, one of the requirements you need, and therefore everything can move down 1. Okay.